Welcome to Creepypasta. Please like, share and subscribe. This will help us make more content for you. Thank you.
My boyfriend and I lost 10 hours. 12 years ago, my boyfriend and I went to the video store to rent Ghostbusters, because I had just found out he'd never seen it before. After we rented the movie, we went for a late lunch. He had 2 beers, and I had 1. We were definitely not drunk. We got back to my place, made popcorn and poured soft drinks over ice and sat down on my couch. We put the movie in the DVD player and pressed play. We were not sleepy, we were not drunk or on drugs. We were in that hyper-awake, flirtatious stage of dating, if that makes sense. It was 6 p.m. It was summertime, so the sun was shining brightly through the shades. Cut to, I suddenly come to consciousness by taking the hugest breath I've ever taken. I hear my boyfriend take a huge breath at the same time next to me. It was the kind of breath you would take after coming out of the water, when you've stayed under as long as possible. We were both sitting on the couch in the exact same positions, but it was dark and the movie was long over. The glowing clock showed it was 4 a.m. We both remember the same thing. We lost consciousness at the exact same time and came back into consciousness at the exact same moment. We don't know what happened. We still talk about it sometimes. It's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. The poor guy has still never seen Ghostbusters to this day, which is too bad because I think it's a really good movie.
Comments. My sister, whom I'm very close to, had a similar experience about 5 years ago. She got up in the morning with her boyfriend, and as he was leaving for work, she sat down to write a paper for her university class. According to her, as he walked out the door, she sat down and placed her hands on her computer keyboard, then looked towards a window that had morning light coming through the blinds, while gathering thoughts about what to write. She said all she did was blink. Suddenly the light was gone, because it was now dark outside, and her boyfriend was coming back in the door, after a 12-hour shift. She was still sitting in the exact same position, straight up in her chair, with her fingers on the keyboard ready to start. However, she didn't shrug it off as an odd random occurrence like others here did. She lost her mind. She had her boyfriend rush her to the emergency room, and called my parents and I to rush down and be with her at the hospital while they ran tests to determine what had happened. This was a 3-hour drive for my parents and a 1-hour drive for me. But we all went as fast as we could because she was convinced that she had had some sort of a stroke, brain aneurysm. That night her blood was checked for every drug, just in case she had been using, had an MRI, and the next morning an EEG, as well as many other tests. When everything came back normal, my parents went to her house and searched for problems such as carbon monoxide and mold that may have affected her. When nothing came of that, they had everything that she had eaten in the past few days, leftovers and component ingredients of foods, tested to see if there was any contaminants in them, like maybe bad wheat in her bread or something, but nothing there. Seriously, they tested everything, including the possibility of low-grade allergies to cleaning products and laundry detergent. At one point they even came up with a theory that her boyfriend or his teenage son had been slowly poisoning her with something added to the sugar in her coffee, a silly theory because they had already checked for chemical levels in her blood, but whatever, which wasn't the problem either. Finally, after 4 to 5 months of running through all this stuff, her doctors decided that it was a mental problem due to stress and sent her to a therapist. The therapist was happy to help with her stress, but didn't feel like she was at a level where it would have caused a problem like that. We all agree that the doctors just didn't have a clue what else to do and just sent her there to get my parents off their backs.
Burned to death, woke up and ran into engine room in time to stop the fire. Necessary background information. It was 2007 and I was working on tugboats on the east coast of the USA. The boat I was on at the time was a 110-foot-long 45-foot-wide harbor tug with a model bow. The boat was originally laid down in 1972, and had a pair of Detroit Diesel 12-71 marine engines. My berth was all the way forward on the weather deck, main deck, and the galley opened directly into the engine room via a hatch. It was a straight shot from my berthing to the engine room. The only way out of my berthing was through the galley. We worked 6 hours on, 6 hours off. I was on back watch, midnight to 6 o'clock, and noon to 1800 hours. It was 22:37 and I woke up in choking smoke with the general and fire alarms going off. I rolled out of bed in my underwear and crawled to the door to my berth. I burned my hand getting the door open. It was a simple wooden door like you'd have in your house. The galley was in flames. There was a body on the deck as I crawled past. I tried crawling up the stairs to the first deck, but didn't make it. The heat and smoke were too much for me. It woke up hot and drenched in sweat. My clock said it was 22:23. My right hand ached. I ran out of my room in my underpants. I ran past the engineer drinking coffee at the galley table and into the fiddly of the engine room. The smell of diesel fuel was heavy and it made the air choking to breath. I ran down the ladder and as I did I saw that fuel was spraying onto the hot turbocharger of the starboard main engine from a ruptured fuel return line. The engineer had followed me down and as I was cutting off the return line he shut down the engine. The deck, bulkheads, ceiling, and me were all covered in diesel. It had been spraying out like a high-pressure fountain. Diesel was sloshing about in the bilge. The engineer told me to notify the captain, who was steering the tug from the upper wheelhouse. While I did that, the engineer started washing down the hot diesel-soaked engine with water from a hose. I got the mate up, put on some clothing, and the three of us cleaned up the mess. Later the next day, the engineer asked me how I knew, if I smelled the fuel or whatnot. I told him how I died, everything you just read. I asked him if things could have become that bad in 14 minutes. He laughed and said, "Hell yeah they will, especially on a tug as poorly designed as this one." He said the entire engine room would have flashed, setting off alarms. The alarm was faulty and went off all the time. A flash in the engine room may not have been very noisy compared to the engine noise. He said he probably would have causally opened the hatch and been overwhelmed. He said I saved everybody's life. It took a week for the diesel smell to leave my skin. I had to shave my beard since the smell wouldn't go away. It still haunts me. I felt my skin blistering. The super hot air broiled my lungs. I now have a saying, any day you're not on fire is a good day. Been saying it ever since that night.
Comments. You also could have had a precognitive dream. Precognitive dreams are any dreams that give you information about the future you wouldn't otherwise have. Dreams can provide a lot of information about your present state of mind, worries, and hopes for the future. When I was younger, my sister had a dream where she saw a car dumped into a river nearby where we lived and described the car in detail to my mom. The next day we witnessed the exact car in the river as my sister described it.
Response. I put more faith in precognitive dreams being real, than the entire reality shifting for only one person, with only minor changes happening. That's only because during a time when I used to experience synchronicities on a daily basis, I had multiple precognitive dreams about important events, that would have changed the outcome of my life in a very serious way, had I not had the dream. I've had minor things happen that seemed like glitches, but I'm pretty sure it was just my awareness focusing on another detail more importantly, which caused it to seem like something had changed, but it was likely my awareness on it, interfering with my memory. Both glitches, and precognitive dreams, have the same amount of evidence, and I could come up with a convincing argument for and against both. It's just my bias. You may ask why I'm here then. I like the stories, and I hope to someday see something that changes my mind.
Do you have a creepy story? Please share it with us in the comments, and we will post it on the channel. Please subscribe. Thank you.